Hare Krishna, thank you for visiting this channel again. And on behalf of Sri Roop Manjari Institute, I welcome you. And here we begin our session for today. We'll begin our session with a meditation on the Kalpavriksha trees of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So while observing these pictures, while absorbing them in your mind, please take deep breath. Deep breathing helps us in focusing. It's good for our health and for our emotional and mental health as well. So while taking deep breaths, please observe these beautiful pictures of Kalpavriksha trees of Sri Vrindavan Dham. These trees are described in Brahma Samhita as Kalpavriksha, meaning desire-fulfilling trees. What kind of desires do they fulfill? They fulfill the desires of spiritual seekers who are seeking deeper meanings in life. We pray unto these beautiful Kalpavriksha trees of Sri Vrindavan Dham that may our longing to go back to Sri Vrindavan to eternally serve Shri Radha and Krishna increase more and more. So take 5 deep breaths. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's now move on to our Mangala Charan. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. We seek the blessings of the Acharyas of Sri Guru, so that our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita can be successful. Let's offer our pranams to the great Acharya Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam, Tapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam, Tadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? We continue by offering our pranams to the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. So it is important here to note that the Vaishnavas are described to be someone full of compassion. And this word will link our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as well, the section that we are studying today. That has something to do with Vaishnavas being full of compassion. So today we are going to, before we begin our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we are going to study or hear a story about Vaishnavas and how they deal with each other. So let me now take you to Sri Vrindavan Dham approximately 500 years ago, when Srila Rupa Goswami was fixed in meditation because of his exalted position as a pure Vaishnava, pure devotee. He had the qualification to actually meditate and see for himself the glorious pastimes which were taking place in the spiritual world right at that moment. So one day Srila Rupa Goswami was completely absorbed in the spiritual vision that was appearing before him. He saw that the Sakhis are uh, are uh, are doing Shringar Seva, or they are decorating Srimati Radharani to prepare her for her meeting with Shyamasundar. So while they were busy decorating her, dressing her up, Shyam Sundar Krishna very quietly, you know, came from behind Srimati Radharani. Seeing him, the Sakhis became joyful. They started giggling. Then, when her shringar was over, Srimati Radharani lifted her mirror to see how she is dressed, and what she saw in the reflection was her Shyam. Seeing her Krishna, her Shyam Sundar appear, all of a sudden she became shy and she covered her face with her sari. So seeing the shyness of Radharani, seeing this, the gopis started giggling and laughing, and seeing this Leela manifesting in front of his eyes, Srila Rupa Goswami also, in the mood of a Manjari, a maidservant of Sri Radha, Srila Rupa Goswami also started laughing. Right at that moment, Srila Rupa Goswami was actually being paid a visit by a Vaishnava, and somehow, because of the timing of the whole incident, the Vaishnava thought that Rupa Goswami is mocking him, he's laughing on him. That Vaishnava was lame, he couldn't walk properly. So, so he assumed that Srila Rupa Goswami is laughing, seeing his inability. He became sad and he went to Srila Sanatan Goswami and he opened his heart. At times Sanatan Goswami explained, "No, no, my dear Vaishnava, it is not so. I am very sure that Rupa Goswami was busy in his meditation of the spiritual world, and he must have observed something sweet and adorable happening in the spiritual world, because of which he was laughing." Oh, thought the Vaishnava to himself, I thought ill of a Vaishnava. I've committed a Vaishnava prad. He became very repentful that he thought of Rupa Goswami in such a manner. At the same time, Rupa Goswami, because of his action, even though it wasn't intended to be so, because of his action, a Vaishnava got hurt, so Rupa Goswami suddenly lost his vision of the spiritual world. He also became perturbed, and he too came to Sanatana Goswami for guidance. At that time, the whole situation became clear to Rupa Goswami that, oh, because this Vaishnava felt hurt, and so I have lost my vision of the spiritual world. And the Vaishnava also thought that, oh, I thought ill of Srila Rupa Goswami, which isn't correct. So both of them offered, humble obeisances, dandavat pranams to each other and begged forgiveness. And just by this, both their hearts were cleared. So, this is how Vaishnavas deal with each other very respectfully. Now, with a service attitude, because suppose because of our chanting, we may grow spiritually, we may start to get some deeper realizations. But if we continue to offend Vaishnavas, our um, our spiritual realizations will get covered, and we will lose access or lose taste for devotional service. Hence, Vaishnava dealings are important. Now, personally, I would like to say that I'm not such an expert in dealing with Vaishnavas. But one thing that I practice more often than anything else is being appreciative of devotees. If there's some small service a devotee has done for Krishna, then I appreciate it. You know, I very thoughtful, I very, what do you call, I try my best to appreciate all devotees. If they've cooked something for Krishna, then appreciating that little service. If they are doing something great for Krishna, then, you know, appreciating them. If they have created a post on Instagram for Krishna, then liking that post and sharing that post. So this is some small thing that I do for Vaishnavas who come around, or whom I come across in my life. All right, so something interesting we learned about Vaishnavas. Now we move to our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 1 has 46 verses. These verses have been segregated into different sections by Yashodamai Mataji very, very mercifully. So now we are currently on the last section of this first chapter, which is titled Arjuna's Doubts. So we will be completing from verse 28 to 36 in this video. Let's quickly jump in. So here it goes. Arjuna uvacha drishtve swajanam Krishna yuyutsam samupastitam siddhanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishyushyati. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Now, what a contrast! When Duryodhan saw the army of Pandavas lined up against him, he became very envious. He was trying to boost his Pitamaha, his grandfather Bhishma, Dronacharya, to fight and furiously against them. But look at Arjuna. What does he say? That, oh my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me, seeing my friends, Swajanam, he's reminding himself that, Duryodhan and all his brothers are actually my my relatives, Swajanam. So, seeing them in such a fighting spirit, he started losing his senses. This shows that he was very, very compassionate. Why? Prabhupada explains he was compassionate because pure devotees like Arjuna possess good qualities of devatas, and compassion is one such quality of the devatas which the Vaishnavas too possess. So this was indicative of Arjuna's behavior, and this is why, because of such godly qualities, Arjuna became. Why did he have godly qualities? Because he was a pure devotee, and hence Arjuna became eligible to hear Bhagavad Gita from Krishna directly. Okay, so let's move to the next verse. Vepathusche sharire me romaharshascha jayate gandivam shamsate hastat tvaktaiva paridhayate. Arjuna said, "My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, and my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning." So here now these emotions just indicate that how Arjuna was so tensed about the fact that he will have to kill his dearly beloved Bhishma. He will have to kill his dearly beloved Dronacharya. He will have to kill Shalya, who was the mama of Nakul and Sahadev, and also Arjuna. He will have to kill so many sons of the Kurus, their grandchildren. So his whole body was trembling. It is said that when Arjuna was just a child, he after playing he would just come back to the palace and climb up on the lap of Bhishma Dev and play with his beard, his crown, and he would say, "Baba, Baba." So that time Bhishma Dev would correct him, "No, no, dear, I am not your father, I am your grandfather." So I'm sure he was, so of course we can kind of assume or safely assume that he was reminded of all these beautiful memories he shared with all these relatives. So in this verse, Prabhupada points out that all this was due to bodily, mm, his, bodily conception of life, that he was on a bodily concept, meaning this was a very material thought, Prabhupada points out in the purport. So why is that? In the previous verse, Prabhupada said he was a pure devotee, and now in this verse, he's saying that he was on a bodily platform, material, thought process. So, well, uh, we'll come to know why Prabhupada says this about Arjuna's this reaction. Let's dive deeper. न च शक्नोमि अवस्थातुं भ्रमति च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव. I'm now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself. My mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. Now, he's saying, what is the use? Why should I fight? If I'll fight, I'll have to kill all these, my, brothers, my cousins, my uncles, my grandfather, my teachers. Now, after killing them, even if I get the kingdom, I see it'll only be a very big misfortune, because who will I enjoy the kingdom with? Who will I show off the kingdom to? So I cannot stand. It's just simply misfortune. I cannot kill them. It's not possible, because Arjuna couldn't take it. That shows he was compassionate, which is good. But still, why? What was wrong with Arjuna's thought? Let's find out more. न च श्रेयो नुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनम् आहवे न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्णा न च राज्यं सुखानि च. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Repeatedly, Arjuna is saying they're my own kinsmen. Swajanam. And he's addressing Krishna as Krishna. So one devotee, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, actually he was sharing that all throughout Mahabharata, Krishna is actually addressed as Keshava or Vasudev. So the name Krishna is very personal. So repeatedly in these verses, Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Krishna, because it's a very personal name. So uh, again, Arjuna is saying, I cannot kill my own people, even if I get the entire kingdom. Now he will start by counting all those who will get unnecessarily killed. Kimno Rajena Govinda, what is the use of Rajya? Kim Bhogar Jivitena Ve, what will I enjoy? Yesham Arthe Kankshitam no, Rajyam Bhoga Sukhani cha. जिन लोगों के साथ, like with whom I'm supposed to enjoy, I'm not going to get them after the war. इमे वस्थिता युद्धे प्रणाम त्यक्त्वा धनानि च acharya dronacharya is there, pitra, people of the level of father are there, putra, like Duryodhan also had his sons on the battlefield, so many, even Arjuna's son Abhimanyu was there on the battlefield. Tathaiva cha pitamaha. Even my grandfather is standing here. Matla, Swasura, Pautra, Matla like mama. My mama's Shakuni, Swasura, meaning in-laws. Pautra, my grandchildren. Tyalaha, even brothers-in-law are here. Sambandhinas tatha. Etan na hantumichami. I do not have the desire, itcha, to hunt them, kill them. Gnatopi Madhusudana. Oh, Madhusudan Krishna. Api Trailok Rajyasa. Even if you give me the kingdom of three worlds. Heto kimnu mahi krite. Nihatya dhartrashran nah. Priti Sej Janardana. So he's saying, oh, maintainer of all living entities, I'm not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will I derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So Arjuna is repeatedly saying, I cannot kill them. What is the use? I do not want the kingdom. This shows that devotees of Krishna are not selfish, they're compassionate. They're not desiring to enjoy the material world, but they are more sensitive to the feelings of others. Right? So this is the difference. This is why Arjuna became the recipient of Krishna's grace and he could hear the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Papam eva shayed asman atvaitan आततायिना तस्मान् नार्हा वयं हन्तुं धार्तराष्ट्रान् स बान्धवान् स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः श्याम माधव. So again, one more point. Not only basically he pointed out what's the use of killing all my kinsmen to enjoy the kingdom. There'll be no enjoyment left. Now another argument he's giving here is sin. Sin will overcome us. Sin हो जाएगा मुझसे, पाप हो जाएगा मुझसे. If we slay such aggressors, he's pointing out that they are aggressors. Atataina. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. Ashwatthama was also actually before the war. He was a friend of Arjuna. They were classmates. They had gone to the same school of Dronacharya and learned archery. Though they had some sort of rivalry because Ashwatthama always wanted to be a better archer than Arjuna, but they were friends. They went together, they shared some memories, had some good time, and eventually, of course, Arjuna became the best archer in the world. But yeah, they knew each other. They were, in one sense, friends. What should we gain, O Krishna? Husband of goddess of fortune, meaning Madhava. So the beautiful name of Krishna, Madhava, meaning of it is husband of goddess of fortune. One another meaning that I read elsewhere was whose beauty is sweeter than Madhu. So he's addressing Krishna as Madhava, saying, oh, you are the god, you are the husband of the goddess of fortune. So I see that only sin will come to me, not good fortune by killing these people. And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen again and again? He's saying. Sometimes I think Mahatma Gandhi also questioned the Bhagavad Gita, that he would say, Mahatma Gandhi would actually glorify Gita by saying that whenever I'm in doubt, I open up the pages of Bhagavad Gita and my doubts are relieved. But oftentimes he questioned, I wonder why Krishna uh, encouraged violence. We see that Arjuna is ready to give up the fight, but Krishna kind of encouraged him to fight. Now, why is that? So let's now discuss this. First of all, let's understand the reason why Arjuna wants to back up from the war. He wants to back up for this one selfish reason, that they are my people and I will not be able to enjoy the kingdom in their absence. There is compassion, but there is selfish compassion, in the sense that he's thinking them in terms of how they are related to him. But they were actually aggressors. Atataina. And Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead, did not want Atatai or aggressors to become the rulers of the world. And uh, he wanted to establish Yudhishthira, you know, um, who was like who was governed by the principles of dharma to become the king. So Arjuna was not in accordance to Krishna's desires. He was thinking of it in his own terms, right? Now, how were Duryodhan and others Atatai? Okay? Let's begin by discussing this. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that if anyone does any of the following six activities, they become aggressors or atatai, and such atatai can be immediately killed. There will be no sin incurred by killing these atatai. So the first type of atatai is poison giver. Okay. Now look at the consciousness of Duryodhana. Even when he was a child, Bhima would actually pick up on him and his other brothers, because he was just strong. He would have fun, and Duryodhana always thought of him as a threat. So, even as a child, Duryodhan schemed and planned and gave poison to Bhima, and not only that, he tied his hands and legs and threw him down the water body, the river. So now, what happened was something else. What happened was that the snakes bit the unconscious Bhima, and one poison nullified the effect of the other poison, and Bhima came back to consciousness, and eventually he was fed more nectar by Varuna, and therefore he got the strength of 10,000 elephants. So, so he was so basically Duryodhana. Coming back to Duryodhana, he was an aggressor because even as a child he was ready to give poison to to a fellow cousin. One who sets fire to the house. Duryodhana and his brothers had done this as well to the Pandavas. If there was once Dhritarashtra, he posed himself to be very generous and asked Yudhishthir Maharaj to go to a newly constructed palace, and that palace was actually built of lac, and it was planned that there was this one person, a servant, who was put up there in that palace, and he was said that at night when the Pandavas sleep, you put the entire palace on fire. So Duryodhan was an aggressor in this term as well. Now let's move to the third type of aggressors, one who attacks with deadly weapons. In Mahabharata, it is mentioned after Yudhishthir Maharaj was defeated in the gambling match. He was left without any army and without any riches. So that time Duryodhan had planned that he would attack the Pandavas with his entire army, and because they're the most vulnerable right now. But Vyasadev quickly intervened and said, "Already what you have done to the Pandavas is incorrect. It's unjustified. If you now attack them, then I'm going to curse you." So Duryodhan was scared of the curses of the Brahmanas, hence he stopped. But he was ready to attack the Pandavas with deadly weapons. One who plunders riches. In that sense, also, our Duryodhan was an aggressor because he's teamed up with Shakuni, and Shakuni was throwing the dice in the gambling match on behalf of Duryodhana. Yudhishthir actually pointed out that as per the rules of gambling, the person who is throwing the dice, he should offer um, his property in the match. One cannot play on behalf of someone else. But that time Duryodhan just shouted out and said, "If you want to play, you play, otherwise you leave." And Yudhishthir Maharaj was expecting Dhritarashtra to intervene, but Dhritarashtra didn't say a word. So, thinking that his seniors want him to continue to play, he continued to play. And the entire gambling match was meant to actually plunder the riches of Yudhishthir Maharaj. So, again, in that term, also in these terms, also, Duryodhan was an aggressor. Now, one who occupies another's land. Actually, Pandava was King Pandu was the original king of Hastinapur, but after his early death, the kingdom was handed over to Dhritarashtra while the Pandavas grow up. So once Yudhishthir Maharaj was of an appropriate age, the kingdom was to get transferred back to him. But Dhritarashtra wanted to establish his own son Duryodhana as the king. So, in that sense, Dhritarashtra and his sons had also occupied someone else's land, Yudhishthir Maharaj's land. Now, last and most important, in that gambling match, under the influence of Karna, who suggested that Draupadi be brought in the Sabha and disrobed. Duryodhan sent his brother to to bring Draupadi. So Draupadi had her periods, so she was dressed in one single cloth and had washed her hair, and she was literally dragged by her hair and brought into this sabha, and she was ill treated, and uh, uh, and all the kurus kept quiet. Bhishma didn't say, Dhritarashtra just played blind. And so basically, this was the most strongest reason why Arjuna should have desired to kill, because Duryodhana and his people were aggressors, meaning they weren't good leaders, they weren't respectful, they weren't protective of the people who are dependent on them. Rather, they had the mentality of aggressors. They insulted a woman so publicly. Imagine what they would have done to other women of their kingdom. So, being a Kshatriya, Arjuna's dharma was to protect those who were dependent upon him. And he was forgetting his dharma and his duty to Krishna, and he was completely backing out. So this is why Krishna motivated Arjuna back to the desire to fight. So we understand that Arjuna was compassionate, he was renounced, he was selfless. These godly qualities were there in him because he was a devotee. But when he lost his connection to Krishna, or his desire to serve Krishna and fulfill Krishna's desire to get these aggressors killed, that's when he got disconnected from Krishna, right? That's when the material conception of life came in. That is why in verse number, I think in the second verse that we discussed today, 29th verse of chapter 1, Prabhupada writes in that purport that this was all due to material conception of life. Alright, let's move on now to the real life story of a glorious Vaishnavi of our age in the sense of, of our modern times, and how she practiced this great wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Alright, so this is an inspiring story of a very brave Ladini Devi, Ladini Mataji. She was born in the United States of America, the beautiful suburbs of Detroit, in 1949 as Linda Jury, and later she got married to a person named Mike. That time in those 1950s, 1960s, basically, American young people, due to this war between US and Vietnam, were looking and searching for deeper meanings in life. They were searching for God. So her husband Mike read this book, Wisdom of God, and eventually moved to New Vrindavan in 1972. Now, what was New Vrindavan? New Vrindavan was basically a farm community. And please do not think that it was so luxurious and beautiful. It was extremely austere. These buildings weren't even there at that time. People had to take cold water baths. They had to bring the water out of wells, and food was limited, and it was extremely cold. There was no facility for soap, and they had muddy roadways in the entire big farm. So it was a and over and above that, devotee life means getting up early, even in cold, taking cold showers, doing Mangal Aarti, and doing one service after another. So it was a very austere life. But after a few years, Mike divorced Ladini Mataji and left left New Brindavan. Ladini Mataji chose to stay back in New Vrindavan and serve for 18 long years, serving her beloved Jagannath, Baldev, and Subhadra Maharani. And so it's not always easy to live in a devotee community, and especially because there can be so many issues between the devotees. So Ladini Mataji, however, because of her absorption in Krishna consciousness, was very happy just serving in New Vrindavan. So there's this one incident that I remember reading from the book, from a biography on her life, Legacy of Love, the name of the book. So I remember that she said, I've been able to live happily in this devotee community because I simply remove the mode um, in which a devotee is saying something to me. For example, if suppose someone is working in the kitchen, and some other devotee walks in and shouts out loud to you and says, look, there's so much garbage around here, why don't you throw it out, in a very rude way. Another devotee may come and would, politely say, oh, Mataji, thank you for working so hard in the kitchen, but I think it would be great if you could throw the garbage out of the kitchen. So the first mode was a mode of passion, Rajasic mode, where you are just wanting to get the work done. Why don't you get it removed immediately? So that is Rajasic. The other one was more softer, gentle, more mode of goodness, mode or way of communicating. So Ladini Mataji tried to just hear the essence of what is being said, and she would remove the mode, and in that way she lived, and happily, and served all the devotees nicely in the farm community. Some devotees glorified Ladini Mataji by saying, Ladini blew my mind. I've never before met anyone who was so blissful. She always had a beautiful smile on her face, and she was kind and gentle with everyone, especially the children. Ladini loved the children and encouraged them. But in 1990, after 18 years of beautiful service to Jagannath, she moved to West Africa. So, and there in different temples, she did different services in different leadership positions. So eventually, she moved to Liberia, and the capital city of Liberia, Monrovia. That time there was a massive, massive civil war going on between the government and a rebellious prince. Okay, and the war was massive, and people were getting killed, slaughtered. The entire streets were on fire. People were losing homes. They had nothing to eat. And so the Hare Krishna devotees actually met Prince Johnson, who was a warlord, and kind of, requested him to support their food for life, meaning they would cook bhoga and offer it to Krishna and then distribute vegetarian prasadam among the poor people of Monrovia. So she wrote to His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj once, there is never a dull moment. Now I am stranded in Liberia in the middle of a war to overthrow the government. Airport has been seized, and they asked all Americans and foreigners to leave the country immediately. American Marines sent 6 battleships and 2,000 Marines meaning soldiers, to evacuate the citizens. I'm just going to assess the devotees. So she had the option to leave such a war-ridden country and go back to peaceful America. But she decided not to. She just decided to assist the devotees through the hard times. There's scarcity of food as all the roads are blocked. No supplies can come in. 150,000 people fled the country in last few weeks. Every day, at least 10 people are beheaded, and the rebels are still 35 miles from the city. It was She had the option to leave, but she stayed back. Now, Prince Johnson was killing all his suspected friends and soldiers of the former president, meaning his opponents. Whoever he thought were friends to the former president, he just killed them. Johnson was also known for killing his own men at a faster rate than the enemy. He would not only kill his enemy, but his own friends also, his own supporters also. He was an insane murderer, okay? So some devotee decided to preach to him and wrote him a letter saying that he should stop the killing. Now, Prince Johnson was in so much tamoguna, or mode of ignorance, that he couldn't take to this criticism, and he decided that these Hare Krishna folks have to be killed. So he walked into the temple the next day in Monrovia, early morning hours, and ordered the devotees to come out. 7 devotees, 5 men and 2 women, exited the temple and filled into a waiting jeep. They were taken to a bridge nearby, and they were forced out at gunpoint and herded onto the sand next to the river. The leader shouted out that only men would be killed. Now, Ladini Mataji was a woman, so she knew she's not going to be killed because she was on the other side. But as the leader raised his weapon to fire, the first execution volley, Ladini leapt forward and attacked him with bare hands. She shouted, How dare you kill the devotees of Krishna? Better you kill me than kill them. and the leader very cruelly shot her first. So this was our fearless Ladini Mataji, who her entire life served Krishna, and by serving Krishna, she became so fearless, and her vision became so deep that even at the expense of her life, she was wanting to serve Krishna's devotees. So, this is a very powerful example of how Krishna consciousness can make us so fearless. And also, we must understand that, often in India, ISKCON is criticized as, by saying that, oh, there are so many big, big temples, they have opened up so many big temples, this, that. Uh, but there's so much sacrifice that has gone behind those temples, and sacrifices of devotees like Ladini Mataji, who have done immense services to Krishna and Krishna's Sankirtan movement. All right, so thank you so much. Today we discussed a beautiful pastime of Srila Rupa Goswami, and in which we discussed about Vaishnava dealings. Then we moved on to our discussion of verses from Srimad Bhagavad Gita from the section Arjuna's doubt, and we discussed the reason why Arjuna didn't want to kill, but why Krishna motivated him to eventually kill, right? And then finally, with this, we glorified Ladini Mataji through her story. So Ladini Mataji ki jai, jai Srila Gurudev Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.